In this Tower Fantasy video, I'm going to show you what I believe to be the top Volt DPS build at current game levels, which right now the max level as of the making of this video is 46. Now, I do want to note that the chipsets used in this build are ones that the majority of people will have access to. However, there are stronger SSR chips currently available that provide better bonuses. With that being said though, I used this build in today's joint operation Hyena Arena 5 numerous times, and on every single one I was top DPS, which I'll show you clips from later on in the video. Now, if you're new here, please sub to the channel for Tower of Fantasy, and when this video is over, check out some of the other content that I've made for the game over on my channel if this video is helpful to you. Alright, so for the weapons that I use for this build, it's going to be Crow's Thunderblades, Nemesis Venus, and then Meryl's Rosy Edge. Now, if you're doing a joint operation or a mission where the bosses are resistant to frost, then more than likely you're going to use another weapon that is not frost. Probably going to use Scythe of the Crows, or maybe even the Molten Shield V2, which is my go-to when I need something for fire damage and shield breaking. Alright, for Crow's Thunderblades, I have them at 3 stars. I got the skin for it. It's actually really dope. For the chipset that I use for the Crow's Thunderblades, it's going to be these. The SR Pepper chipset for the 3-piece set of non-stop, increased speed of obtaining weapon charge by 10%. The Thunderblades already have a really fast weapon charge, so when you use these, it's going to make it super duper fast. I've got the 3-piece set for the memory, belief, and emotion, but for the mind, I use one of the SSR chips I have to give myself a higher crit. For the Nemesis Venus, I don't have any stars on this weapon, but the weapon chips that I do use on it, probably going to be the Echo set. It's Uproot, the 3-piece set bonus. Using a discharge skill to switch to the current weapon is going to grant 80 weapon charge, so this is going to be huge whenever you're trying to discharge skill back to back. So you hit one discharge skill and you'll be close to hitting another discharge skill, which will allow you to do more damage overall. And then finally, for the shield breaker weapon, I've got the Rosy Edge from Meryl. I've got 2 stars on that. The 3-piece chipset I'm using is the one that you get from any. It's called Overload, and it says when dealing damage greater than 100% of attack, deal additional damage equal to 60%, and it has a 3-second cooldown. For the mind chip, I'm just going to use one that I have pretty strong at 40, so I can give myself higher crit with this weapon. And the relics that I use for this build is going to be Missile Barrage and Kuon. Missile Barrage just gives you some extra DPS on top of what you're doing. And then Kuon, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but it just provides you a shield. And it just makes me feel a little bit more protected while I'm doing these joint operations. But if I'm not doing a joint operation and I feel like I'm going to need to use my jetpack, I'll definitely put the jetpack on. And for those of you wondering, my suppressor level is at version 5.1. And when it comes to my gear, I'm at pretty much SR gear on everything with varying stars of 3, 2, and 4. Alright, so in this gameplay that you're seeing, it's one of the first ones that I did using this build where I absolutely blow the DPS out of the water. The Simulacra that I'm using is the Zero Simulacra, and if you don't know, he has an awakened trait that allows you to use your relics just a little bit faster every time that you use a weapon skill. I personally don't have that trait awakened. The one for Crow, he allows you just to crit a little bit better if you attack enemies from behind. I don't have that one awakened either. That's just an FYI as to why you would use Simulacra instead of your CAC. During these joint operation runs, or any run. CAC, if you don't know, it means created character. So with this particular operation, the Hyena Arena 5, I talked about this just a little bit earlier, but I'll give it greater notice now, is that I'm using the Meryl's Rosy Edge for my shield breaker weapon, and it has really good burst DPS, really good AoE burst DPS because it attacks a group of people. However, I feel like my better shield breaker weapon for burst DPS is probably going to be the Molten Shield V2, but because this joint operation calls for something other than fire, because the final boss is resistant to fire, I'm using Meryl's Rosy Edge, which is not a bad choice. Now, in this joint operation in particular, this works. It might not work. This particular build might not work in other joint operations, so you definitely have to, read the rules of the joint operation. Some enemies might be resistant to Volt. There are some instances, some runs that I did with other players, and they were using like the Scythe of the Crows or the Molten Shield, and they were doing really good DPS in the very beginning. So much so that I was competing with them and I was barely beating them, or maybe we were neck and neck at some point in time. But when we did get to the final boss, I was able to pull away from them with the Rosy Edge because they didn't pay attention to the rules. So all that to say, when you are doing these joint operations, definitely pay attention to the rules. Now, I wanted to give you a little bit of tips and pointers on how I use this build. So I'm basically sort of like DPS chasing in this instance where I really didn't go for the crates, so I was able to like get extra DPS over like the people that I'm playing against. But if you look at the top left-hand corner, it really doesn't matter. Like the top DPS below me, they're only at 300, almost 400. Yeah, they just hit 400 now, and I'm already at 1 mil. So it doesn't really matter if I chase DPS or not in this round. I was always going to pull away from these people because I have the right chips and I am playing this this instance sort of right. Mugetsu, he's trying to chase DPS 2 right now, but he's trying to get over there and trying to catch me. I'm only guessing that he's thinking like, how is this guy like out DPS me, because he's actually not doing bad, but it's just that he's not doing it properly, I guess, if that makes sense. All right, so with this build, you definitely want to utilize the Nemesis Venus. All right, that's going to be like the secret backbone clutch to this entire thing. Don't look at the Nemesis weapon and see that it's a support weapon and just think, oh, it's not going to put out DPS, but it is. I tried using this build before and I had something else on. I think I was using the chakram before that, and somebody was blowing me out of the water, and I was like, okay, well, I've got 2 DPS type weapons on. I should be blowing them out of the water, but not so. It's because of the Nemesis Venus and those electro turrets right there. Those electro turrets are huge. So whenever I get into a group fight like this, the first thing that I want to do is get the discharge for Nemesis or Venus so I can get those electrodes out there, and those electrodes are just going to put on extra DPS. And then after that, I'll switch back to the Thunderblade and I'll try to get my DPS up with those using the Thunderblade skill, because that's like that right there. That's like an AoE that hits multiple people, and because I have on that chipset that gives me weapon charge a little bit faster with those Thunderblades, I'm going to get weapon charge super duper fast, and I'll be able to hit the discharge for Meryl's Rosy Edge. And a big part of this too is being able to know when to dodge, or being lucky with the dodge, I guess. So you get the Fantasia, I think it's called in this game, so you can get that automatic discharge with your weapons, and you can go ahead and put that out there. But for a certainty, when you're in a group fight or in a fight with a group of enemies, the thing that you definitely want to do first, the science, the formula, is get the discharge for Nemesis first, or Venus first, so you can do the electrodes, and then you want to go ahead and spam with the your weapons. That's going to give you extra weapon charge, so you can discharge into the Rosy Edge, so you can get that AoE damage on all enemies in the area. There have been instances where I was doing this and I was below the top DPS, and I was able to use the Rosy Edge discharge, and it put me right up on top again, because I was able to hit like multiple enemies with like 20 and 30,000 points of damage. And it's just one of those weapons that's sort of insane. Like I said earlier, I feel like the Molten Shield V2 is a little bit better for this. I would probably be out damaging, but for this instance, it definitely calls for a weapon that's not fire. A little bit of tips and advice when you are doing the Hyena Arena 5 and you get to this part. This is very troublesome, man. It's very irritating. That's why I put the shield on instead of another DPS relic, because you're just getting knocked around a whole bunch with this. The best thing I can tell you to do is try to get those electrodes out as often as possible, and basically just follow the same formula, and only really use the Rosy Edge discharge skill whenever you see that you have the boss in like an area where they're just not moving, or they're not going to be as mobile, because this Lucia chick and then the guy on the little unicycle, they move around a lot, and there are only certain times when they're actually staying still. When they're staying still, that's when you got to hit them with all of your most powerful things. If you don't have those electrodes out there, definitely throw those electrodes out there. If you're using the Rosy Edge and you see that they're doing some move that like is an AoE and it hits everybody, the Rosy Edge, when you hold the attack button and you do that little spinny, you get hyper armor and you can't be interrupted from whatever you're doing. So definitely utilize that a lot as well. Also, you might sometimes want to hold that Rosy Edge and don't do it immediately, because when you see the boss is about to do some move that is uninterruptible, you can use your own move that's uninterruptible, and you kind of like cancel each other out on the uninterruptible, and neither of you is going to be able to be interrupted, so you can just go ahead and use your ability and get that damage off on them. And you can see right now the damage. I'm at 3.6 mil. Mugetsu is at 1.5. The other guy's at 1.2. Like I said, they're not doing bad. Like the guy Darwin, he's doing bad. He's trying to DPS, but he's just doing bad. The other two aren't doing bad. They're just not chipped properly, or they're not fighting properly. I believe Mugetsu, I think. Who's that? I think it's Mugetsu. He's also using the Rosy Edge. Let me take a quick look at that. And if he is using the Rosy Edge, he probably just doesn't have it chipped properly. I at one point in time I did put the chipset for obtaining weapon charge on the Rosy Edge so I could get more charge faster, but I realized that was probably the wrong move because the Rosy Edge is going to be like a really big burst of damage, and the Thunderblades, because they get really fast weapon charge already, man, look at this right here, just take them all out, look at that damage, and break the shield at the same time. Now here comes the unicycle. I'm not going to show you the entire thing of this unicycle because honestly this unicycle guy really pisses me off, but utilize the electrodes, utilize Nemesis Venus in this fight, because trying to get up on this thing and melee him is a little bit difficult. Now there are times when he will stand still, or like right now when he's not moving so fast, you can definitely switch to the Thunderblades and get some DPS off on him. The best way that I like to DPS these Thunderblades is basically do the 5-hit combo on the ground or do 3-hit combo on the ground, hold the attack button, so I do the little spinny, I think it's called spiral edge, I'm not sure exactly what it's called, but when you go up into the air on him and you're kind of suspended there, and then just hit the attack button a bunch of times, and then that's when you're going to do wow, I can't think of the name of the move, and I just did a video on it, but you do like some sort of, you know, shadow attacks. You get 5 attacks constantly in a row, and when you do those 5 attacks in the air in a row, that's when you get a lot of weapon charge. So basically just the weapon Thunderblades, I mean, they're good DPS for sure, but in this instance, all they're really good for is just getting that weapon charge. And once you get that weapon charge, you can go ahead and throw the electrodes out there, and then you can also do the Rosy Edge, and that's going to be most of your damage. The electrodes and the Rosy Edge, that's going to definitely be most of your damage. This is good right here too, how you can get him stuck inside this little icy ring when you use Meryl's Rosy Edge discharge. That's really, really good to do. And look at this, bro, he's just gonna destroy me. Also use the dodge skills, man. The dodge skills are amazing. Definitely don't sleep on the dodge skills for the, and I just went down, that's crazy. Don't sleep on the dodge skill for the Nemesis Venus, because those dodge skills, or just dodging in general, will get you health back. And this thing is almost done, and look at the damage right here. I'm at 5,000 damage out, and this other guy who was just second DPS was at 2.2k. And here's just another look at some of the other runs that I did do with other people. You can see my damage right now. I'm kind of racing this guy VYR, but I'm doing slightly better than him because I believe I'm chipped better than he is, and I'm using the build just a little bit properly. I think in this run he was actually using a similar build than me. Yeah, this is actually the run where he's using the exact same build, but I was just chipped a little bit better than him. Probably my stats are a little bit higher, but he was definitely doing the best in terms of DPS out of the other guys, but I was just doing a little bit better than him. And the DPS results of this one, it has me at 3k damage out, and he's just shy of 3k. He's got like 300 less than me, like 250 less, and I just kind of destroyed him in that DPS. And here's another run. In this one, there's a guy, X Leahy. He was actually doing really good DPS as well, but I was able to out DPS him too. There's one point in time where he did go down in this fight, so that's why his DPS is a little bit lower than mine. Otherwise, he'd probably be neck and neck with me, but because he was so focused on trying to get DPS out, and he wasn't like properly switching back to Venus and Nemesis to get those heals off, he wasn't able to like keep himself up, because you really can't depend on other people to heal you, even though that with my heals going out, I think I do get like top healing out in this. Yeah, I got top healing out of this as well as high DPS 3,183, and he's just at 3,000 with no healing out, so he wasn't like taking care of himself at all. And this final one that I wanted to show you, I wish I could show you them all, but I don't want the video to be too long. This guy, Primogem, he was doing really good in the beginning. That's why his DPS is so high. I think this is one of the runs where the guy was like kind of neck and neck, maybe even beating me at the beginning. But he's using the Scythe of the Crows, which is a fire weapon, and he's not doing as much DPS as me because I have Meryl's Rosy Edge for this final fight, and this guy is resistant to fire damage. At least that's what the rules say. I might be reading that wrong, but I definitely have, you know, caught him and beat him. Like, I'm at 3.7, he's just at 3 mil right now, and he is trying hard as he might. And this is just me being frustrated at this point because I've been doing this run, like, I think it's probably like my 19th time doing the run and just beating people in DPS, and I was just so sick and tired of this unicycle guy just running all over the place. It's so frustrating. But no, I just wanted to show you the damage here, and we're about to see the results of this. I'm at 3.8, about to hit 4 mil. He hasn't even, like, look at him, he's doing his best DPS, and he hasn't even cracked like 3.1 mil. And the results of this one has me at, what, 3.8, but shout out to Shu down at the bottom, who definitely was doing all of the healing. I was trying to do my best to like keep up with Primogem because he was definitely doing his thing with the DPS early game, so I wasn't doing as much healing as much as I was DPS on this one. So I definitely, with this build, I definitely want to show you that if you focus on DPS, even if you are being beat in the beginning, you definitely have to just pay attention to those rules, because the rules will save you every single time when you want to get high DPS. Alright, and that's going to be it for this video. If you guys did find it helpful, do me a favor and hit the thumbs up button and leave me a comment down below if you have any questions on this build or suggestions to make the build a little bit better. And also, definitely check out the channel if you did find this video helpful. Head on over to my YouTube channel and look at some of the other videos that I've made for the game so far. You might see something that you need, or you might see something that you didn't know you need. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day. Peace out.